Hello everyone and welcome to our Tech Tuesday tutorials number 173. Today we show you how and why to use the import range formula in Google Sheets. This is now the 5th video detailing specific formulas for Google Sheets, and many of these do work on Excel as well. But if you want to see the other ones, check out our channel or our mobile app using the link below, the QR code on your screen, or the link in the video description. Got it? Okay, so import range. What does it do? Well, it imports a range of cells from one spreadsheet into another. Let's say I want this data from this spreadsheet dumped into this spreadsheet, that kind of thing. If you change anything in the first spreadsheet, the original one, something small, okay, then the import range will update within a few seconds to display in the place where you've imported it to. So think about that for a little bit. When would you need a list or cells from one sheet to appear on another sheet? Well, here's a few ideas. Let's say you want to import some data from one sheet, like student information, that's needed in others. So this spreadsheet here has some bogus names here for students and made up schools, and this data may change, but I'd like to reference it in another sheet somewhere. I can bring that in here and pull that in. And notice that when I brought this in, I'm only bringing in 4 columns. So this may be the only information that I would like for the people who can access this sheet to be able to see and only choose the data that I want to pull in. And of course, when it changes on the original, it changes on the import. Another more practical thing is, let's say you have a list of your teachers and you need that list in a lot of different places. Let's say you have an expense report and a travel form and other things like that, and you'd want to be able to pull down a list of names, or maybe you just want to make sure everything's spelled correctly. Well, you can have a list of, let's say, your teachers here, and you need this list to be able to be used in about 5 different sheets, but you don't want to have to go and change those 5 different sheets every time, and so you would set up a import range to import this list. Well, then what do you do with that list? Well, that list can then be referenced with a validation field. You might decide that you need a single spreadsheet with data sets from multiple sheets, kind of all coming into one to kind of create an overview of something. Let's say you've got some student data on this subject, some student data for this subject, and so on. And they're all separate spreadsheets, but you need them all into one to create a nice little report or whatever. And you don't want to have to copy paste because you can make mistakes, or the data could change after you've pasted it. So you want those to be linked. And so in this case, this sheet here that I'm just showing you has one import range, a second import range, a third import range, all into one. Okay, so how do we do this, right? First, you need to have access to the original sheet that you're pulling from. Then you also need to know the formula. The formula is actually pretty easy. It's equals import range, parentheses, and the things you want to clarify about that import. There's only 2 bits of data here. The URL for the spreadsheet that you're going to pull from, and the range of cells that you're going to pull from. And that's it. Okay, so we're going to practice importing and show you how this works. Step 1, we're going to copy the complete URL from a sheet. Let's say we're going to use this sheet and we're going to pull from A through D. Just these 4 cells or these 4 columns. I'll go up here and I'll copy the URL, the complete URL. Now you don't have to do the complete URL. You can actually just do the unique identifier, which is this string here that is after the D but before edit, if you want a really tidy formula. But you can use the whole URL just to make it easy. So we'll say equals import range and parentheses, and that lets it know that this is a function and the things inside the parentheses are the components of that. The URL, because it's a string and not just numbers, it has letters and all that, it needs to be within quotation marks. So I'll put that within quotation marks, close it up, comma. And now I'll put in the range string. The range string is basically the range of cells that I want to bring in. And I believe I said A through D. So we'll just do quotation marks because it's a string, A colon D. That means everything from A to D, and we're not specifying a row number, so it's going to get it all. And then close it up. Now, the first time I do this, you're going to get this little ref thing. It's going to ask you to link your 2 sheets together. Once you do this once, you don't have to do it again for that sheet. So you just go here and say allow access, and there it goes, it brings it in. Let's say I only wanted the first few rows of this, or I didn't want to pull in the header, I can specify the row at that point. So here, the information starts on A2 and goes through D. Well, I can just fix that formula real quick. And instead of A, I say A2. So it starts on cell A2 and it goes all the way down D infinity. But if I said, let's just say D5, it's only going to bring in 3 rows now from A2 to D, or 4 rows now from A2 to D5 inclusive. Now, if I wanted to bring in their information for Lexile score, that's L. The problem is I don't want to bring in E through K. Well, in that case, it's not a range. It's a series of ranges. And the best thing I would say to keep things simple is to make sure that all of them are next to each other. So on your original one, you may consider moving L over here to be next to D, so it becomes E. And then you can just change your thing here to make it to E. Now, there's other ways using query and a couple of other functions, but that's beyond the scope of today. Just know that if you want to keep it easy, that's how you would do it. Now, notice I didn't bring in the headers. If I wanted to, again, I could just start with A, or I could even insert a row here and then put my headers in at the top here manually. So I may not like the way that the headers are set up here, like student name is one field, school name is one field, stuff like that. Well, if you don't want to mess around with the original because maybe it's exported from a student information system on a regular basis and it's going to get changed or overwritten, then you could just import where the data starts on row 2, like I just did here, and manually put in your own names for these headers and adjust them any way you want. This also works with things like slicers. So once I have a slicer up and running, so at this point I can bring that in and say I only want to see Columbus Elementary. Okay, and in particular I want to see, and only want to see Dominic Bixler. There we go. Now you see doubles here because the original data had information for ELA and math, and we did not import that range. So it's important to know. But that's a basic import range. Okay, so how did I do that import with the pull down? Well, that was basically an import range. I pulled in all the names. And to make it easy, let's just, instead of C2 to C, let's go C2 to C10. So it only brings in like 9 of these things. Great. So let's say I want this list of names as a pull down. Well, on another tab or something, I can just come in here and it's fine. I want to pull down a pull down list right here on this cell. Well, I go to data and validation. And we covered this in previous Tech Tuesday, but I'll just show it right now. And then we go to add rules and we say, okay, this is applying to this cell. And the criteria is a dropdown. Well, I want to say a dropdown from a range. And that range is where? Well, instead of having to type it all out and having to know the syntax, you can just hit the little window icon. And then while this is up, go over to where you have your list and select your list. And it will automatically put in the right syntax for you. Isn't that great? Then hit OK. Come back in here and I can see that it is shown as like a little chip. And it shows even the names. And what's kind of neat is that the new data validation system that Sheets has, which I don't think I've covered in Tech Tuesday, allows you to even assign colors to the various choices in a pull down list. It's just kind of awesome. So for some reason, if you wanted to do that, you could assign each person a different color. And under advanced options, you can even choose whether or not you want to reject that, and whether it's a chip style like that or an arrow like the classic way we used to do it. So we say done. And at this point, I now have a pull down and I have the colors, and when I fill it in, it correctly even applies the color on the chip as well. And remember, because it's imported from an import range, if the original list ever changes, then your import changes, which affects your pull down list. Alright, so I hope you all enjoyed this video and I hope you found it useful. And if you did, go ahead and hit that like button. Heck, why not support us and click that subscribe button or add our mobile app. Click the bell icon to receive email notifications. We'll see you guys in the next Tech Tuesday. Bye-bye.